Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to be talking through the English reading paper 2023 SATs paper for year 6. This is the second part of the walkthrough and I'm going to be talking about the second text, Bats Under the Bridge. If I'm honest, last year when the year 6ers took this, they did find this really tricky. It was quite a long text, lots of questions to answer, and there was a concern, I know, from many other schools that this reading paper was just too long and a lot of the children didn't actually get onto that final text because this one, the Bats Under the Bridge one, just took so much time. So today I'm going to talk through how to answer the questions in this text and hopefully you'll find this helpful. So just to give you a bit more context, the Year 6 SATs will take place this year between May 13th and 16th. You can see the exact dates underneath, and you can also see that it's Tuesday the 14th of May 2024 when they will do their reading paper. The questions in the reading paper are made up of short answers, which could be at least just one word, several line answers where the children may be asked to explain their answer a little bit, and same with longer answers, and then sometimes selected answers where they may have to circle or draw lines. So the full marks for this test is 50, but the pass mark is usually around between 24 and 26. Given that this is quite a tricky reading text, I think the pass mark was more around the 24 mark for this one. Okay, so Bats Under the Bridge is the second text, and I'm going to be moving backwards and forwards, looking in the text to find the answers. First question, question 13. Now, best bear in mind that part 1 of this walkthrough is already on the channel, so please check that out. So, look at the first two paragraphs, so it tells us exactly where we need to look. In which American state is the Congress Avenue Bridge found? Now, children did find this quite tricky because a lot of primary school children, unfortunately, their American geography isn't that great, and we don't have states in this country, so they would have found this quite difficult. But if they can go back to the text, let's see if we can find the answer. So in the first two paragraphs, so we're looking at this paragraph and this paragraph, let's see if we can find that keyword state. There it is. Austin is the capital city of the state of Texas. Now, if they've read that correctly, they're going to write state of Texas, and that's the correct answer. However, what a lot of children did is they wrote Austin instead of Texas. So the correct answer here was Texas. However, a lot of children would have written Austin. Now that's okay as long as they would have written Austin in the state of Texas. They could have written Austin in the state of Texas and still got it correct. But if they just wrote Austin, they wouldn't. Question 14. Look at the first two paragraphs. Why is Batfest held in the summer? So let's look at the key words. It's a why question. So it's going to be an inference question. We're going to need to use the word because. Summer is a key word. And we're looking again in the first two paragraphs. Let's see if we can find the answer. Back at the text. Why do we think it's held in the summer? So we're going to have to scan through. By night, it plays most amazing shows. Nature. Underside the bridge is home to more than 1 million bats. And every evening in the summer, they all come swarming at once. We've got that keyword summer, so maybe the answer is around here somewhere. Rising up to the city skyline, tornadoes spreading in all directions. Okay, Austin's capital city, but it's also capital of North America. The bats on the bridge attract thousands of visitors every year. Every August, bats lovers celebrate Batfest on the bridge in their honor. So why do we think that it is they visit there? And it looks like that at this point in the year, in August, that is when all the bats appear. Okay, millions of bats every evening in the summer. So that's when they have Batfest. They're not going to have Batfest at a time when there's no bats around. So why is Batfest held in the summer? Again, using that word because that is when millions of bats are visiting the city, and that would be a correct answer for a mark. Number 15. The bridge is described as a hotspot by interviewer Harriet. What does the word hotspot mean when the interviewer used it in her question? Now, this question really had the children stumped because they've never really seen a question like this, but there are two parts to it. And it's looking at the meaning of the word hotspots, but in two different contexts. The first is when the interview uses it. So how does the interviewer use it? And what does the word hotspot mean when Harriet gives her answer? So it must mean that when these two people use the word hotspot, it's used in a different way. So let's go to find the word hotspot in the text. Okay, so down here, it's actually very appropriate that you call it a hotspot. This bridge is, the interviewer asks here, this ordinary bridge is popular with bats. What makes it such a hotspot? So, in this context, she's talking about it being a hotspot because of so many bats being there. It's a hotspot for the amount of bats. It is popular with bats, so that's that. It's actually very appropriate that you call it a hotspot. The gaps underneath the bridge are a perfect place for bats to raise their young. Baby bats are born hairless and have only a few months to develop their travelling. So in autumn, they need somewhere warm. So the answer that's given by Harriet, okay, is that this is actually, she says it's interesting you call it a hotspot because it's a warm place. So she's talking about it being a warm place, where the interviewer is talking about it being a hotspot because of how many bats appear there. Okay? Right, let's go back to our answer. So if we look at these two, what does the word hotspot mean when the interviewer uses it? That it is popular for bats. And what does the word hotspot mean when Harriet uses it? That the bridge is a warm place for young bats because they're born hairless. Now, that's how you would need to answer these two questions. Okay, and this really confused a lot of children because they couldn't work out how this word would have two different meanings in two different contexts. But that's essentially it, okay? Hotspot as in popular, there's lots of people there, lots of bats there, and hotspot as in the place is actually literally a warm place. Question 16. Look at Harriet's answer to the question. This ordinary bridge is popular with bats. What makes it such a hotspot? The Congress Avenue Bridge attracts bats to Austin. What else attracts bats to Texas? Now, this is talking about bats being attracted to Austin, okay? But why else are the bats there? What else attracts bats to Texas in particular? Let's go and find out. Looking at this paragraph here, okay? So first of all, they need somewhere warm and safe, and the gaps on the bridge are just right. These bat pups need to spend their energy on growth and not on keeping themselves warm. Texas, here we go, is a general paradise for bats because of all its tasty insects. So obviously the bats are trying to raise their young. They need lots of food, and it even says here that they'll consume about 2/3 of their body weight in insects every single night. So Texas, because it has lots of insects, that also attracts bats to the area. So back at the question, we can write down Texas has a large amount of insects for the bats to feed on. Okay, so that would be the answer to that question, and we would get a mark. Let's move on. Question 17. So, question 17 says, look at the answer beginning, it's actually very appropriate. Find and copy one word that is closest in meaning to eat. So, here we go. I would tell my children, as soon as you see in a question, it say, find and copy. You know it's a word meaning question. You know you're going to be asked to find a word or phrase that means something. So, in this case, eat. And it's also helping us, telling us where to look. Look at Harriet's answer beginning. It's actually very appropriate. So let's go back to that section. It says it's actually very appropriate that you call it hotspot. We're looking for a word that means eat here. So let's keep scanning. There was something about bats eating insects down here. Aha, here we go. So we've got the word consume. If I was to swap that word for eat, would it still make sense? A mother bat will go out hunting every evening and eat about 2/3 of her body weight. Yep, so I can swap the word and it still makes sense. So I would guess that the word consume would be fine. Interestingly, it also accepts the word feeding, okay, as a correct answer. So either of those two would be correct. So I'm going to write down the word consume. And just be careful you don't write consume and feeding, because it clearly states in the question you need to write one word. Okay. Question 18. Look at Harriet's answer to the question. Have there always been so many bats? Okay, so it's telling us where to look again. And look, we've got find and copy one word, which means a group of bats living together. So once again, we know it's a word meaning question. We now need to look in this section here. Have there always been so many bats? So let's go and have a look. So here in this section, we're looking for a word that means group, and specifically a word that means a group of bats. No, this large number of bats is quite new. A few bats have lived under the bridge for years. It was headline news when suddenly began moving into the thousands. After engineers rebuilt the bridge, they had no idea they were creating such an ideal bat home. So when these bats first came, they were uninvited guests. Many campaigned to have the bat colony eradicated. Right, colony. That's a potential word. Is there any others? Let's just check. Don't think so. Can we swap that word for group? Many campaign to have the bat group eradicated. Yeah, it sort of works. So I would say that that would be the correct answer. Okay, back at the question, we can write down colony, okay, as the correct answer for number 18. Number 19. Look at Harriet's answer to the question. Have there always been so many bats here? So once again, it's being very kind to us, telling us where to look in the text so we don't have to waste time. According to Harriet, why do some people in Austin dislike bats? So we've got a why question, which means that it's probably going to be inference. It's probably going to be using the word because. We need to give two reasons. Yes, we're going to use the word because. So let's go to this section, and we're looking for a reason why some people in Austin might not like bats. So again, looking in this section, have there always been so many bats? Why might they not like them? We're looking for reasons. Now, given that it's inference, it's not going to jump out of us. We're going to have to read between the lines. Okay, so thousands. So we've got the actual number of bats. Okay. Okay. They were uninvited guests. It was frightening for some people. And for some people, they thought the bats would attack them and pull out their hair, or that they'd carry disease. So there's a couple of reasons there that people were concerned, okay? That they might pull out their hair, attack them in some way, that they would carry diseases. Okay, so two reasons. Because the bats might attack them, and the second reason for a mark, because they thought the bats would carry diseases. And given those two reasons, which we found in the text, we will get the mark. Question number 20. Okay, so look at Harriet's answer to the question. There are millions of bats in Texas. How can they need protecting? So here we go. We're looking in this section. Harriet describes the bats as vulnerable. Which of the following is closest in meaning to vulnerable? Now, this is one of those questions where if you've got a good vocabulary, you might not have to go back to the text to look at the word in context, as in written in the text and how it's used. So let's have a quick look if we can work out what the word vulnerable might mean. Do we think that Harriet describes the bats as foolish? I wouldn't say so. Could that she mean that they are at risk, frightening, or tormented? I wouldn't say tormented, and I wouldn't say foolish. So they've got two here that it could potentially mean. Okay. Now, if we're talking about the bats being protected, I don't think we're talking about the bats being frightening. I think that in this case, we're going to mean that the bats are possibly at risk, and that's what that word vulnerable means. So we'll tick that one. I would advise going back to the text and just reading where this word appears, but it's one of those questions where you can save time if you already know what the word vulnerable means. Okay, number 20b. According to Harriet, why does living in large groups make the bats vulnerable? Okay, we are going to have to go back to the text for this one. It's a why question, so we're looking for a reason. Why are the bats vulnerable? So we're looking in this section here. It's true bats are easily outnumber humans in Texas, but they're vulnerable, okay, because they live in large groups. One cave can hold 50 million bats. Imagine if anything happened to that cave. 50 million bats would all become homeless at once. So there you have it, okay? They're vulnerable because they spend so much time together in a big group. If their home was destroyed suddenly, all those 15 million bats would have nowhere to bring up their young. Back at the question, the reason would be because if something happened to their home, 15 million bats would be homeless. Okay, so that's a negative of being living in such large groups. Question 21. Look at Harriet's answer to the question, what benefits could bats possibly bring to humans? Now, there is a need in this question to understand what the word benefits means. Now, if you benefit, it means you help in some way. So how are bats helping humans? And we're looking for two ways. And there's 2 marks to be got here. So we need to give 2 different things. How can you tell Harriet thinks insects are pests? Okay. Now, this is a very interesting one because you could very easily make a mistake here and answer this question, what benefits could bats possibly bring to humans? But that's not the question it's asking. It's asking how can you tell that Harriet thinks insects are pests? So we need to give 2 ways that Harriet suggests that she doesn't like insects or thinks that they are pests. So we're looking in this section about the benefits that bats could possibly bring. And we are not looking for the benefits that they have, not in the ways they help humans. We are looking for how Harriet, from here, what we think Harriet thinks about them being pests, so insects. Okay, we spend a lot of time battling against insects. We've been tormented by mosquitoes or wasps. Farmers spend millions of dollars buying chemicals quite harmful to the environment to stop the hungry insects eating crops. So we've got already quite a lot of evidence to suggest that these insects are pests, that we have to battle with them all the time. We get bitten by them or stung by them. They eat the farmers' crops. So what 2 reasons could we give? So some correct answers here would be that humans are annoyed by insects, okay, that they bite us or torment us, tormented by mosquitoes. Humans are annoyed by insects, tormented by mosquitoes. That will be one way. And how else do we know that she thinks they're pests? Because they destroy the farmers' crops. Okay, so there would be our 2 reasons for 2 marks. Question 22. Draw 4 lines to match an amount on the left to a fact on the right. So this is a simple question where we're having to join these up, but we will have to go back to the text to check. So we've got thousands, a few, 10, and 15 million. Now, from just reading the text, you may be able to remember, but it's a good idea to check. So people visiting Congress Avenue Bridge each year. Are there thousands, 15 million? I don't think there's going to be 15 million people. I don't think there's only 10, and I don't think there's only a few. So the obvious answer will be thousands. Bats living in one cave, I would think that that would be 15 million. Months baby bats need to develop before traveling, a few or 10. Now this is one we might have to go back to the text for. Okay, so back at this page we can see baby bats are born hairless and have only a few months to develop before traveling south. A few months would suggest 2 months. Okay, so let's go back. Right, a few months a baby bat needs to develop before traveling, which means process of elimination, 10 tons of insects eaten by bats each night. Okay. Okay, question 23 is a true or false table. And you get 2 marks for getting all of them correct, and you'll get 1 mark for making 1 mistake. So using the information from the text, ticks 1 box in each row to show whether each statement is true or false. Harriet Lopez thinks bats are cute. Well, we actually know that Harriet likes bats. Whether she thinks they're specifically cute is we'd have to check. Bats could be an alternative chemical for farmers. We know that that is true because we've seen it in the text already. In Texas, there are more humans than bats. More humans than bats? I don't think so, but we need to check that. Putting a bat box in your garden will encourage insects. Is that true, or will it encourage more bats? Let's go back to the text and see if we can find some of these things. First of all, here we've got talking about the farmers. Okay, and farmers spend millions of dollars every year buying chemicals, some of which are quite harmful to the environment, to stop insects from eating their crops. A group of bats like the ones on the bridge will eat 10 tons of insects. Okay, so we should view bats as enemies, not allies. So yes, bats are an alternative to using chemicals. Installing bat boxes in their fields and encouraging bats to live there. So the farmers are encouraging bats to live there, but it doesn't say anything about the bat boxes encouraging insects. Fillet plants, you should also put on. These are quite easy to make, so you won't buy one. And finally, remember to let everyone know about our flying friends. It doesn't say that bat boxes will encourage more insects. That would suggest that was false. So in Texas, Harriet Lopez thinks bats are cute. I think we think this is true. Okay, putting a bat box, I think that is false. That one we checked, definitely true. So in Texas, there are more humans than bats. This must be false, okay, because we've already said that there are 15 million bats in Texas. I don't think there are that many humans. 24. Is there anything I can do to support bats in my area? Now it says tick 1. We've already read about bat boxes. Let's see. This question shows the interviewer. Okay, so this is a different kind of question. Another good question which is tricking them a little bit, because you might read this as the question, but you've got to be very careful. That is not the question. This question shows the interviewer is. So by asking this question, how does the interviewer feel about bats? Surprised that there are so many bats in Austin. I don't think that suggests that. Is unaware what to think about bats. I don't think that question suggests that. Has decided to attend Bat Fest in this coming year. I don't think that suggests that. Agrees with Harriet on her opinions on bats. Well, Harriet wants to help bats, and it looks like the interviewer agrees with her because she's asking, how can I help? So I would tick this one. Question 25. Tick 2 reasons why Harriet Lopez is a good person to interview about bats. Now for this one, unlike the last one, we have to tick 2 to get the 1 mark. So just be careful about that. Even though it says 1 mark, you still have to tick 2. So why, another inference, is she a good person to interview about bats? Well, she can explain why bats are dangerous. I don't think she talks about that. She definitely doesn't organise Bat Fest. She knows important details about bats. I would say yes. She campaigns against bats. Definitely no. She understands how people feel about bats. I would say that was true as well. So those were the 2 that you would need to tick to get a mark. And the final question on this paper, okay, for the text about bats is a lovely 3 marker where we're having to give some points and some evidence to support those. Now, just to let you know, with a 3 mark question, you can get the 3 marks by giving 2 points, at least 1 of those with evidence, 2 acceptable points, at least 1 with evidence. So even if you made 2 points here, but only gave evidence for 1, you would still get the 3 marks. You get 2 marks for 2 acceptable points, and you get 1 mark for 1 acceptable point. So making the points is just as important as getting the evidence here. Give 2 positive messages using evidence from the text to support your answer. What positive messages does Harriet want the reader to understand about bats? So what could those positive messages be? Bats shouldn't be judged by their appearance. She says, even though they might look scary, they aren't really. So another positive message I would say about this text is that bats help to get rid of insects, and the evidence would be that they actually eat about 15 million. No, they eat about 10 tons of insects, don't they? So we need to give some evidence. So they help to eat insects that annoy humans. So I've made an acceptable point, and I've got my evidence from the text. And this next one, I'm actually going to find evidence in the text because that's what we really should be doing. So the next positive message could be, bats are not harmful. So bats are not harmful. And how do we know that? Well, let's go back to the text and have a look for some evidence. Gradually, though, so here it says that they were worried about them carrying diseases. Gradually, we learned that surprising truth. Bats make ideal neighbours. They are gentle creatures that will not harm you as long as you do not try to touch them. So they're actually gentle creatures, which that's evidence suggests that they're not there to hurt humans and they're not dangerous. So our evidence could be bats are gentle creatures. Now, just to bear in mind, these are not the only points that you could have made. The list of acceptable points are: bats provide benefits for humans and people and farming. Bats are not harmful. Bats should be protected. Bats are our friends. Bats are misunderstood. They're interesting or amazing creatures. Bats provide benefits to tourism, okay, which would also be a good one. All of those would be considered acceptable points, but just to reiterate, to get the 3 marks, you need 2 points, at least one of them with evidence. So for these 2 points and evidence, I would definitely get the 3 marks. Okay, so that was part 2 of the reading walkthrough 2023 paper. As I said, this was a tricky paper, tricky text, so I hope you found the video helpful. Please subscribe for more videos on primary education. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.